Good evening and welcome back to the Vision of Veritas here. Yesterday I said I was going to go over Biden's speech that he had yesterday evening and go over it point by point. I was expecting so much more from the speech than what he actually said. It very much echoed pretty much what Karine Jean-Pierre said earlier that day. Really, the only takeaways from the speech are Republicans aren't allowed to question anything. If they do question anything, they're election deniers, and they are to be silenced, and the soul of our nation is in jeopardy because certain Republicans said that they won't blindly accept things that aren't transparent. That's pretty much what the gist of the entire speech was. Oh, and let's not also forget how Biden brought up the fact of political violence, but completely, totally, and utterly fails to reference his own party, to which by far the vast majority of political violence has been attributed to. I mean, I shouldn't have to talk about cities burning, death threats to the former president of the United States, and the entirety of the left on national TV being perfectly okay with it. I mean, in my video yesterday, I played at least 5, 6, 7 solid minutes of public Democrat leaders publicly stating for all to hear and being cheered by the entirety of the left, including our own vice president, political violence, encouraging political violence. It's not Republicans doing that, it's Democrats, and there's plenty of video out there. So let's go through this speech, pick it apart, see what's true, what isn't true, and expose this speech for what it truly is.
Good evening. Thank you. Please, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a few days ago, a little before 2:30 a.m. in the morning, a man smashed the back windows and broke into the home of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the third highest ranking official in America. He carried in his backpack zip ties, duct tape, rope, and a hammer. As he told the police, he had come looking for Nancy Pelosi, to take her hostage, to interrogate her, to threaten to break her kneecaps. But she wasn't there. Her husband, my friend Paul Pelosi, was home alone. The assailant tried to take Paul hostage. He woke him up. He wanted to tie him up. The assailant ended up using a hammer to smash Paul's skull. Thankfully, by the grace of God, Paul survived. All this happened after the assault, and it's hard to even say. It's hard to even say. After the assailant entered the home asking, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Those are the very same words used by the mob when they stormed the United States Capitol on January the 6th.
Attempting to draw a parallel between what happened January 6th and this deranged individual who may or may not have been in the Pelosi home to do what the official story is. We still don't know. They won't release any of the surrounding video footage. They won't release the police cams. They won't release anything that proves the story that they're peddling here. No, I'm certainly not saying that he wasn't attacked, and I'm certainly not justifying it in any way, shape, or form, because there's no justification for it. But what I'm saying is, all we have is the word of one of the most dishonest administrations that we've had in quite some time here. But trying to draw a parallel between what happened in the Pelosi home to January 6th, that's just a complete and utter act of desperation. Just because someone allegedly said, "Where is Pelosi?" because again, we have no proof of any of this, doesn't mean that this individual's alleged intentions align or have anything whatsoever to do with those of January 6th. After all, January 6th was not an insurrection. It was a massive protest that got out of control, got seriously out of control, and they trespassed on the Capitol grounds. They trespassed on, keep this in mind, folks, the people's Capitol. I don't know how we as United States citizens, as we the people, can trespass on the people's capital grounds. I still haven't wrapped my head around that one. Anyhow, moving on here.
When they broke windows, kicked in the doors, brutally attacked law enforcement, roamed the corridors, hunting for officials, and erected gallows to hang the former Vice President Mike Pence. It was an enraged mob that had been whipped up into a frenzy by a president repeating over and over again, the big lie that the election of 2020 had been stolen. It's a lie that fueled the dangerous rise in political violence and voter intimidation over the past 2 years. Even before January the 6th, we saw election officials and election workers in a number of states subject to menacing calls, physical threats, even threats to their very lives. In Georgia, for example, the Republican Secretary of State and his family were subjected to death threats because he refused to break the law and give in to the defeated president's demand, just find him 11,780 votes. Just find me 11,780 votes. Election workers like Shay Moss and her mother Ruby Freeman were harassed and threatened just because they had the courage to do their job and stand up for the truth, to stand up for our democracy. This institution, this intimidation, this violence against Democrats, Republicans, and nonpartisan officials just doing their jobs are the consequence of lies told for power and profit, lies of conspiracy and malice, lies repeated over and over to generate a cycle of anger, hate, vitriol, and even violence. In this moment, we have to confront those lies with the truth. The very future of our nation depends on it.
Let's not forget the police removed the barricades. The police let them into the Capitol. The police ushered them on Capitol grounds. And also, my friends, did you actually see this quote-unquote gallows that Biden is referencing here? If you look at all the shots in the media from CNN to MSNBC, even Fox News, what they do is they show an image of this quote-unquote gallows facing up on an upward angle. What they didn't show was the view of it straight on, was the view of the people actually holding it, because it wasn't that big at all. If they showed it straight on with you actually looking at it eye level, you would have seen a quote-unquote gallows that is much, much smaller than what they actually portrayed it as on television. And that, of course, is done intentionally for the sole purpose of deception. There is no evidence whatsoever, let alone proof, that it is a quote-unquote big lie. You have denied each and every advance in the court with millions of dollars that has been funded into the court system to keep each and every challenge, each and every affidavit out of the court system completely. Something that is transparent, something that is free and fair, something that is on the up and up would not have to have that done. If it was transparent and everything was legitimate within the election, you would have welcomed it for the sole purpose of proving Republicans as completely and utterly ridiculous in their claims. It would have made them look like fools across the world. But no, you spent millions to keep it out of the court system. People, draw your own conclusions on that one. Not that I'm condoning political violence of any kind or election intimidation, but how quickly are you guys to dismiss all of the death threats, all of the political violence, everything that you hurled against the former president? It's all out there for everybody to see, but no one mentions it. You never mention it. You pin everything on Republicans when it's absolutely not the case. I mean, we can go back to 2008 when the new Black Panther Party was outside of voting institutions in Philadelphia. And goodness knows, I tried to find the clip of this. I really searched. If someone out there can find it, please send it to me, because I can't find it anywhere now. It's almost as though it's been scrubbed. But you had the new Black Panther members saying, we need to kill some of those white people and their babies. We need to kill some white babies. But, that's not mentioned in the media. They were outside those polling places with billy clubs. You can find the video of that, but you still don't hear about it anywhere. How convenient. What Biden fails to mention is that this kind of stuff happens on both sides, but only one side gets attention and blamed for 100% of it. None of it is justified, but you are manipulated into thinking that it is only one side that perpetuates 100% of it, when in reality, Republicans and even more rare conservatives in specific very rarely perpetuate any kind of political violence. I mean, it is exceptionally rare.
My fellow Americans, We're facing a defining moment, an inflection point. We must, with one overwhelming, unified voice, speak as a country and say there's no place for voter intimidation or political violence in America, whether it's directed at Democrats or Republicans. No place, period. No place ever.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
That's it right there.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Ye need not believe thine lying eyes. What you just saw did not take place. It never happened. You will believe whatever we tell you. If you do not believe, we will re-educate you. You will be charged with sedition against thine holy democratic empire. You will bow before us, and you will die. So shall it be written, so shall it be done.
I speak today near Capitol Hill, near the U.S. Capitol, the citadel of our democracy. I know there's a lot at stake in these midterm elections, from our economy, to the safety of our streets, to our personal freedoms, the future of health care, Social Security, Medicare. It's all important. But we'll have our differences. We'll have our difference of opinion. And that's what it's supposed to be. But there's something else at stake. Democracy itself. I'm not the only one who sees it. Recent polls have shown that overwhelming majority of Americans believe our democracy is at risk, that our democracy is under threat. They too see that democracy is on the ballot this year, and they're deeply concerned about it. So today, I appeal to all Americans, regardless of party, to meet this moment of national and generational importance. We must vote, knowing what's at stake and not just the policy of the moment, but institutions that have held us together as we sought a more perfect union are also at stake. We must vote knowing who we have been, what we're at risk of becoming. Look, my fellow Americans, the old expression, freedom is not free. It requires constant vigilance. From the very beginning, nothing has been guaranteed about democracy in America. Every generation has had to defend it, protect it, preserve it, choose it. For that's what democracy is. It's a choice, a decision of the people, by the people, and for the people. The issue couldn't be clearer in my view. We, the people, must decide whether we'll have fair and free elections, and every vote counts.
Does someone want to remind the former Vice President of the United States here that we don't live in a democracy? We live in a republic. This country is a republic. It was founded as a republic for very specific reasons. You cannot have a pure democracy. You can't have a democracy because a democracy is mob rule. The reason why we have a republic is because we have a constitution. We elect our representatives to go to Washington, be it the legislative, be it the executive, or the judicial branches. We have three separate but co-equal branches of government, elected by the people in one form or another. Yes, I know Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president, but we elect the president, who in turn appoints the justices. They are either confirmed or denied by the individuals that we appoint to Congress. So we as United States citizens elect the representatives which represent us. In turn, those representatives are supposed to follow the Constitution of the United States in making their decisions based on the will of the people in the halls of power within this country. We do not live in a democracy, and we do not want to live in one. And all votes do count as long as they are legal votes made by legal citizens legally. I don't know why this most basic of concepts is so difficult for you leftists to understand.
We, the people, must decide whether we're going to sustain a republic where reality is accepted, the law is obeyed, and your vote is truly sacred. We, the people, must decide whether the rule of law will prevail, whether we will allow the dark forces that thirst for power put ahead of the principles that we've long guided us. You know, American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. He refuses to accept the will of the people. He refuses to accept the fact that he lost. He has abused his power and put the loyalty to himself before loyalty to the Constitution. And he's made a big lie an article of faith in the MAGA Republican Party, the minority of that party. The great irony about the 2020 election is that it's the most attacked election in our history, and yet, there's no election in our history that we can be more certain of its results.
If the former president of the United States legitimately lost, then fine, he legitimately lost. We as a nation are still waiting for you to prove it within a court of law because there is so much evidence to the contrary. Like I said earlier, it's very interesting that you would spend millions of dollars to keep it from being proven a loss for Republicans in a court of law. Again, you would have welcomed it to prove the Republicans as fools throughout the entire world, to the entire world. If we can be so certain of its results, fine. Prove it in a court of law. Don't spend millions of dollars to keep all of the evidence out of the court system. I mean, can you even imagine if the parties were switched and Republicans tried to suppress evidence within the court system? I mean, and can you even fathom something like that happening?
Every legal challenge that could have been brought was brought. Every recount that could have been undertaken was undertaken. Every recount confirmed the results. Wherever fact or evidence had been demanded, the big lie has been proven to be just that, a big lie, every single time. Yet now, extreme MAGA Republicans aim to question not only the legitimacy of past elections, but elections being held now and into the future. The extreme MAGA element of the Republican Party, which is a minority of that party, as I said earlier, but is this driving force, is trying to succeed where they failed in 2020, to suppress the right of voters and subvert the electoral system itself. That means denying your right to vote and deciding whether your vote even counts. Instead of waiting until an election is over, they're starting well before it. They're starting now. They've emboldened violence and intimidation of voters and election officials. It's estimated that there are more than 300 election deniers on the ballot all across America.
We must not allow anybody who questions our legitimacy, our authority. We will not allow any question. We will not allow any ideas of subversion. You will believe everything we say. If not, you are an election denier. You are subverting the will of the people. You are subverting the great Führer. You will be silenced at every turn. Your constitutional rights shall be suspended. You will either agree with us or perish.
This year, we can't ignore the impact this is having on our country. It's damaging, it's corrosive, and it's destructive. And I want to be very clear. This is not about me. It's about all of us. It's about what makes America, America. It's about the durability of our democracy. For democracies are more than a form of government. They're a way of being, a way of seeing the world, a way that defines who we are, what we believe, why we do what we do. Democracy is simply that fundamental. We must, in this moment, dig deep within ourselves and recognize that we can't take democracy for granted any longer. With democracy on the ballot, we have to remember these first principles. Democracy means the rule of the people, not the rule of monarchs or the moneyed, but the rule of the people. Autocracy is the opposite of democracy. It means the rule of one person, one interest, one ideology, one party. To state the obvious, the lives of billions of people from antiquity till now have been shaped by the battle between these competing forces, between the aspirations of the many and the greed and power of the few, between the people's right for self-determination and the self-seeking autocrat, between the dreams of a democracy and the appetites of an autocracy. What we're doing now is going to determine whether democracy will long endure. It, in my view, is the biggest of questions. Whether the American system that prizes the individual, bends towards justice, and depends on the rule of law, whether that system will prevail. This is the struggle we're now in. A struggle for democracy, a struggle for decency and dignity, a struggle for prosperity and progress, a struggle for the very soul of America itself. Make no mistake, democracy is on the ballot for all of us. We must remember that democracy is a covenant. We need to start looking out for each other again, seeing ourselves as we the people, not as entrenched enemies. This is a choice we can make. Disunion and chaos are not inevitable.
What do you mean this isn't about you? Everything done thus far has been about you and advancing your agenda. The entirety of 2019 to 2020, leading up to your election, has been one concerted effort to install you into power. Everything has been about you. It's you who haven't been concerned about the American people, the American way of life, and our republic. Democracies are a way of being? Are you serious? What on earth does that mean? Perhaps that's why we don't have a democracy. We have a republic. And no, autocracy isn't the ruling of one political party. Autocracy is the ruling of one individual with absolute power, a dictator. That is what an autocracy is. What we actually have currently is a banana republic, but that's a conversation for another time. You know, in listening to what this guy thinks a democracy is, and he completely botches it. But in listening to what he thinks it is, the way he sounds, he reminds me of a child predator trying to lure someone in with the promise of something substantial. It's truly eerie and really, really creepy.
There's been anger before in America. There's been division before in America. But we've never given up on the American experiment. And we can't do that now. The remarkable thing about American democracy is this: just enough of us, on just enough occasions, have chosen not to dismantle democracy, but to preserve democracy. We must choose that path again. Because democracy is on the ballot, we have to remember that even in our darkest moments, there are fundamental values and beliefs that unite us as Americans. And they must unite us now. What are they? Well, I think first, we believe the vote in America is sacred, to be honored, not denied, respected, not dismissed, counted, not ignored. A vote is not a partisan tool to be counted when it helps your candidates and tossed aside when it doesn't.
Far be it from me to point out the fact that it's not us Republicans suppressing any vote. We have publicly stated time and time again that all legal votes should count. Everybody who can vote should vote. Everybody who can vote should vote legally. Prove you are a United States citizen. Prove you live where you live. There is no greater treasure in this republic. Our ability to vote freely for a free and fair elections is what separates us from the rest of the world. There is only one party that is advocating for this, and it is not the socialist left.
Second, we must, with an overwhelming voice, stand against political violence and voter intimidation, period. Stand up and speak against it. We don't settle our differences in America with a riot, a mob, or a bullet, or a hammer. We settle them peaceably at the ballot box. We have to be honest with ourselves, though. We have to face this problem. We have to be honest with ourselves, though. We have to face this problem. We can't turn away from it. We can't pretend it's just going to solve itself. There's an alarming rise in the number of our people in this country condoning political violence or simply remaining silent, because silence is complicity. The disturbing rise of voter intimidation, the pernicious tendency to excuse political violence, or at least trying to explain it away. We can't allow this sentiment to grow. We must confront it head on now. It has to stop now. I believe the voices excusing or calling for violence and intimidation are a distinct minority in America, but they're loud and they are determined. We have to be more determined. All of us who reject political violence and voter intimidation, and I believe that's the overwhelming majority of the American people, all of us must unite to make it absolutely clear that violence and intimidation have no place in America.
Mr. President, I think you are forgetting the entire summer where you and your entire party destroyed cities and towns.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started, and there's a crowd that.
All in the name of political violence. All under the guise of a false equality that you are peddling. Shut your mouth, you hypocrite.
And third, we believe in democracy. That's who we are as Americans. I know it isn't easy. Democracy is imperfect. It always has been. But we're all called to defend it now. History and common sense tell us that liberty, opportunity, and justice thrive in a democracy, not in an autocracy. At our best, America is not a zero-sum society where for you to succeed, someone else has to fail. I promise America is big enough. It's big enough for everyone to succeed. Every generation opening the door of opportunity just a little bit wider. Every generation, including those who've been excluded before. We believe we should leave no one behind because each one of us is a child of God. And every person is sacred. If that's true, then every person's rights must be sacred as well. Individual dignity, individual worth, individual determination. That's America. That's democracy. And that's what we have to defend.
If you truly believe that for an individual to succeed, someone else does not have to fail, you would not segregate us as a society. You would not pit white against black. You would not pit young against old. You would not pit wealthy against middle class against the poor. You would not pit every race, every class. You would not pit genders. You would not create victim groups. You would not find any and all excuses to keep everybody in this United States of America divided. If you truly believed any of what you just said there, you would be for the unification of this country better than it has ever happened in its history. But no, at every turn, you and your party divides us. At every turn, you perpetuate a system that suppresses anybody who doesn't agree as you do, anybody who doesn't think as you do, and anybody who speaks out against you. You have eviscerated our Constitution. You have destroyed our individual liberties, all under the guise of equality for all. You and your party have separated and segregated us as a society. You and your party have segregated us so well in today's day and age that Lenin and Stalin of the former Soviet Union would be damn proud of you. And incidentally enough, we actually know from history that the Democrat Party was praised by those very dictators I just mentioned. That, again, is another story for another time, though. Another part of history that's so very conveniently glossed over.
Look, even as I speak here tonight, 27 million people have already cast their ballot in the midterm elections. Millions more will cast their ballots in the final days leading up to November the 8th. And for the first time, this is the first time since the national election of 2020, once again, we're seeing record turnout all over the country. And that's good. We want Americans to vote. We want every American's voice to be heard. Now we have to move the process forward. We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. And we know that many states don't start counting those ballots until after the polls close on November 8th. That means in some cases we won't know the winner of the election for a few days, until a few days after the election. It takes time to count all legitimate ballots in a legal and orderly manner. It's always been important for citizens in democracy to be informed and engaged. Now it's important for citizens to be patient as well. That's how it's supposed to work. This is also the first election since the events of January 6th, when the armed, angry mob stormed the U.S. Capitol. I wish I could say the assault on our democracy had ended that day, but I cannot. As I stand here today, there are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, Congress, Attorney General, Secretary of State, who won't commit. They will not commit to accepting the results of elections that they're running in.
Good. I applaud each and every one of those individuals who refuses to simply accept the results of an election that is not transparent. You see, that's the part that you ever so conveniently leave out. These individuals aren't saying that they won't arbitrarily accept the results if they lose. What they're saying is, if the process is not transparent, if there are elements in the shadows, if there are accusations of things happening behind closed doors like that which did happen in the 2020 election, that they will not arbitrarily and outright accept the legitimacy of their not winning. And you know what? They shouldn't. And again, I applaud each and every one of those individuals that is standing up to this tyranny. And you know what? I find it quite alarming that you have a problem with individuals who refuse or simply won't accept something because it isn't transparent. You see, that tells me and that tells America that you do have something to hide, that we've always known you've had something to hide. You should have absolutely no problem if a question is raised. If someone brings up a legitimate point and tries to take it to court, you have no business trying to keep it out of the court system, spending millions of dollars and doing whatever is necessary to keep it out of the court system. It is individuals, it is parties like your own that cause the election issues in this country. Your refusal to transparency is at the forefront of it.
This is a path to chaos in America. It's unprecedented. It's unlawful. And it's un-American. As I've said before, you can't love your country only when you win. This is no ordinary year. So I ask you to think long and hard about the moment we're in. In a typical year, we're often not faced with questions of whether the vote we cast will preserve democracy or put us at risk. But this year we are. This year, I hope you'll make the future of our democracy an important part of your decision to vote and how you vote. I hope you'll ask a simple question of each candidate you might vote for. Will that person accept the legitimate will of the American people, of the people voting in his district or her district? Will that person accept the outcome of the election, win or lose? The answer to that question is vital. And in my opinion, it should be decisive. On the answer to that question hangs the future of the country we love so much and the fate of the democracy that has made so much possible for us. Too many people have sacrificed too much for too many years for us to walk away from the American project in democracy. Because we've enjoyed our freedoms for so long, it's easy to think they'll always be with us no matter what. But that isn't true today. In our bones, we know democracy is at risk. But we also know this. It's within our power, each and every one of us, to preserve our democracy. And I believe we will. I think I know this country. I know we will. You have the power. It's your choice. It's your decision. The fate of the nation, the fate of the soul of America lies where it always does, with the people. In your hands, in your heart, and your ballot. My fellow Americans, we'll meet this moment. We just need to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together. May God bless you all. May God protect our troops. May God bless those standing guard over our democracy. Thank you, and Godspeed.
That's right, former Vice President Biden. We are the United States of America. We are a republic. We are the shining example of what a republic should be. You know, in our past 240 years, we have risen from a simple, vast landmass into the most powerful nation in existence. Voters of America, as Biden just said, yes, you do have a choice, but your choice isn't what Biden is portraying. Your choice is this. Do you want an America that is similar to how you grew up? Do you want an America that respects the rule of law, that doesn't divide, that doesn't segregate? Do you want an America where one side is silenced forcibly? Do you want an America, regardless of your specific political position, do you want an America where there is one party that gets to freely express and say whatever they want without any backlash from the media? One in which the media perpetuates whatever the Democratic left says, whatever the socialist left says. If you want an America where your First Amendment rights are valued, where your Second Amendment rights remain to protect your First Amendment rights and every other amendment in our Bill of Rights, if you want the freedom and liberty that our founders intended from the inception of this great nation, then you need to vote for freedom. You need to vote for that liberty. You need to make sure that this Marxism is voted out. My friends, thank you for joining me today. I know this was a much longer video. If you stuck around for it, I greatly appreciate it, and I truly hope that you take it to heart, you share it with your friends and family. I would also appreciate it that if you truly got anything out of today's video, that you would please like, share, subscribe, do the whole YouTube thing. I know it's irritating hearing it over and over, but there's really no other way to convey it. But please subscribe and please send this off to your friends. Thank you, my friends, and take care.